Hi, everyone. Thanks for spending your Wednesday morning with me. Um, I'm really excited to be here. I love this topic. This is a free class, just to be explicit. This is a free class that's just available. It's just free. It's just for you. And it's also part of a larger context that I'm promoting and launching right now called Mother Fire, that is specifically a 6-week container for mothers trying to figure out how to have a pleasurable experience of motherhood and a fulfilled experience of motherhood that doesn't leave them feeling burnt out. So I do think it's possible. I do think that's also like a woman's endeavor. So if you're not a mother and you're here, you're most welcome. The soul of boundaries is what I'm calling this time and space. And I think for women in particular, although this pertains to human beings, everything I'm going to say here, my interest is women. My interest is in women understanding what their boundaries are, why they matter, and how to communicate them effectively without creating more trauma, drama, chaos for themselves and others in the communication of boundaries. So, we're going to go into ideas about boundaries, experiences of boundaries, discussion of boundaries, and we'll do a little writing practice at the end that I hope will be fruitful for you. And then there will be the opportunity to share. And depending on how many folks kind of trickle in, we might do breakout groups or we might just do a group share. Um, we'll just feel into what's best at that time when we get there. So, first things first, I'm going to ask each of you to stand up if you're not already standing. Summer, I see you leaning, so maybe that means you're standing. There you go. Chair out of the way. And this is really simple. You're just going to cross your right foot over your left. So you're crossed at the shins and try to squeeze your feet together as close as possible. You don't need to try to line up your toes, but just get your ankles really close. And then put your right elbow on top of your left and either grab your opposite shoulders, or if you are a yoga practitioner, you can do eagle arms, whatever feels good to you this morning. And now try to put more of your weight in your right foot. So that's that front foot. And you're not lifting your left foot at all. You're not sort of peeling your heel up. Try not to squeeze your butt cheeks and push your pelvis forward. Just bring a little more of your weight to that right foot. And then very slowly, with your eyes open, turn your gaze to the left. Turn your head so that you're looking over your left shoulder, and then allow your eyes to take in the space. Keeping your weight in your right foot, and feel for the possibility of relaxing your glutes a little bit, deepening your breath as you gaze to the left. And then slowly return your gaze to center. Unwind your arms, uncross your legs, and stand with your feet parallel to one another. And just relax your arms, your shoulders. And take in your surroundings. Maybe your eyes go up to where the ceiling meets the wall. And you trace that line a little bit, or your eyes go out a window. You just notice where you are without zoning out or zeroing in on any one thing. Good. And then to the other side, cross your left foot over your right. Try to get your feet close together, but also still carrying weight on both feet. And then your left elbow goes over your right, and you can grab opposite shoulders or eagle wrap your arms. And then allow your weight to shift a little more into your left foot. Slowly turn your eyes to the right. And notice what you notice there visually. Feel your weight settle into your left foot without lifting your right foot off the floor. Easy breath. Let your eyes roam around a little. And then slowly unwind your arms. Stand your feet side by side. And again, allow your eyes to go where they want to go. If that feels overwhelming to do that, or your brain goes, what do you mean? Take your eyes to where the ceiling meets the wall and slowly trace that line with your eyes. And you can do that anyway. It's just a way to focus. And allow yourself to notice how you're affected by that. You might even close your eyes for a moment and tune in to what your breath is doing, what you're aware of in your physical body, how your state of mind may have shifted even slightly in just a few minutes of connecting to your body on purpose. Good. And then let's come back to each other. So you could sit or you could stay standing, whatever you like. Let me get, I have that. Oh, I know what I'll do. Sometimes I cover up the chat with my notes and then I don't see when people are in the waiting room. So I just closed the chat and it's all good. All right, everyone. Anything noteworthy that you want to share? Was that, what was that like for you? And you're welcome to unmute or you can just type something into the chat because it's a small group. I'll ask you to get in the chat a little later too.
I'm always going to talk if you volunteer to talk. Two things. One, I just want to reassure everybody that during our practice, my 18-month-old is going to seal the Hamun for us. She's watching K-pop Demon Hunter. She's 18 months old. She can barely talk, but she knows all the songs. So we're safe from the demons during this practice. And yeah, during the practice, I felt like my body, I felt a lot of resistance come up. Just because my body's like, oh shit, you're gonna try to make me feel something. Like during the practice, it was like, I know what you're doing.
I know what this means. Great. So notice that and just allow yourself to decide amongst yourselves, you and your body and other such parts. What is the appropriate level of push today? Where can we work hand in hand and do that? That's lesson 1 in boundaries. Don't push unnecessarily. Don't push for something that's not happening. And this is probably the hardest thing about boundaries. I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit and I'll come right back to you, Rachel. You can't set a boundary that's not rooted in what's actually happening. And if you're not willing to feel or see or acknowledge what is actually happening, you can't set a boundary. You can't hold a boundary. You can't maintain that boundary. And sometimes coming into relationship with reality is sad. It's infuriating. It's uncomfortable. It's all those things. So we're learning today how to come into relationship with reality in a way that doesn't do harm, but actually empowers us to take action. That's the fire I'm talking about. And some of you who've been following me on Instagram this last week or so, a fire is made powerful through structure. A fire that has no structure fizzles out or burns out of control. So you have to tend to the fire of your spirit, your desire, your intention, yourself deliberately and repeatedly. And so we have to figure out what those necessary conditions are for that fucking repetition to not be grating or exhausting. Because that's really just all it is. Chop wood, carry water. And so what can we do that makes that pleasurable? All right, Rachel, I would love to hear from you. And I saw something in the chat too. Go ahead, Rach.
Yeah, so I think the pushing, it did feel a little bit of like pushing that boundary in multiple ways because like in my body, it felt like, tight and like in, eagle pose.
Yeah.
I used to love that pose so much. And then, throughout different times in your practice, like different poses feel better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one that I have been resistant to in the past year or so.
Yeah.
And it also felt good to like push out against like, I don't know, I could really feel that boundary within myself.
Good.
Um, yeah, I think that was the main takeaway. But then I was sort of in my head too of like, wait, are we supposed to be doing right leg over and right leg?
Yeah.
Like, are we doing the pose correctly? And I'm like, this isn't
Yeah.
even a pose, but we're like, I don't know. So, yeah.
I know. Always the yoga teacher. Yeah. Great noticing. I don't want to, I could take a rabbit hole there, but I'm going to stay on track with my notes. I'm going to do that. Thank you for sharing, everybody. Moppy, you got some love already in the chat, but I seconded that. It was definitely the first time in the day that I felt my body as well. I was like, ooh, hello, shoulders and upper back. So, obviously, the topic of boundaries is huge. And I just love for you to add in the chat what, you know, what drew you to spending your hour this way, to spending part of your day this way? Is there an issue with boundaries? Have they been historically hard for you? Do you feel super strong, but need, having a baby changed everything? Or like, where are you at with boundaries and why did you think that this would be helpful? And it can be a short answer. I'm going to keep talking. So I just love to get some of that information in the chat. I'd like to clarify, this is coming from me. My conception of boundaries that has been most helpful is boundaries as connection. So typically a boundary is thought like set up a boundary, put space between, separate yourself from, which, yeah, that is a consequence also. But I'm thinking about this in terms of a lesson that's a big part of somatic sex education and consent work, which is if you don't know what your no is, you don't actually have a yes. And with a boundary, if you don't know what you're protecting inside yourself, what you're honoring, what you're trying to connect more deeply to or root into in your life, then what is the point of the boundary? Except frustration and pushing away and rejection. And it's like the Donald Trump slogan, or I guess it's an anti-Trump slogan of resist. I actually really hate that because it's like, to me, it feels like wasted effort. Like, what are we creating? What is the point of directing all of my attention to stopping something I don't like? What fucking life am I living? So if your boundary is not coming from a sense of this is what I want, this is what I need, this is who I am, this is what I love, then it will not be sustainable and it will create more problems for you in your relationships. I'm sweating profusely. I feel so strongly about this. I always sweat when I teach, but this topic really gets something going for me. If you're not clear on what you're wanting to protect, then all of the energy goes into it. It very quickly turns into like blame and protecting yourself from the perceived harm of another, which again, in the expression of our nervous system, when there's a perceived threat, our focus goes like this. And we completely lose sight of everything else that's going on. Not an effective way to be in a relationship, not an effective way to live your life, and completely limited in what's possible. So this switch to an orientation to what am I protecting? What do I love? What do I want? It's like, well, I don't know, what do I want? Right? Like, let's think about it. It's much more expansive and puts you in a position to be able to see options. For most of us, boundaries are an implicit thing, right? Like your body is a boundary, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you're actively engaged in connecting to your body that way or not. You don't put your hand in a fire. That's like a known boundary. Like, don't do that. You stop at a stoplight, hopefully, a stop sign. Like, there are boundaries all over the place that are conditioned responses. And I think this is a really important theme when we're understanding boundaries in relationship. How much of our sense of boundary, getting to have a boundary, what it takes to hold a boundary, is in large part your conditioned response from childhood. So just think about what goes through your head or how your body responds when you perceive that a boundary has been crossed. And like, whose voice is that? What is the phrase that comes to mind? What is the stance that your body takes, right? It's like, for me, it's like a 15-year-old. 15-year-old Stacy was a bitch. Was a bitch. Knew fucking everything. Knew everything. I mean, she was cool, but glad I'm not her anymore. I'm going to take a little pause. I have more in my fire hose for sure. Take a little pause in case there are any questions. Yeah. Yeah, Mappy, this is great the way you phrased this. Thank you. It's hard to implement boundaries when I very much orient to relationships as trying to maintain the system's overall okayness. Right? So again, that's part of the conditioned response. Within your family system, you took on a role. And for a kid, it's just the water that you're swimming in. Like, you're not aware. This just is. You're just trying to survive. And it's a very difficult thing to step out of that reality. It's very terrifying. And then it's very difficult to step out of that reality, recognize the dysfunction, and not just feel like you were betrayed and abused and done wrong, right? Like somehow it was all a manipulation, which 9 times out of 10, I believe it's not. It's just what happened, right? The conditions were what they were. And perhaps naively, or perhaps this is real, I'm not quite sure still. Like, I do believe, with few exceptions, most parents really are doing their best given the circumstances. And so it just is what it is, which is why a big part of Mother Fire, a big part of working with boundaries is grieving, acknowledging that there's grief there. I wish it hadn't been like that. I wanted something different. I needed something different. And now you're an adult and it's your job to do something different. And how fucking infuriating is that? And right. And that's the part that shows up when I have to set a boundary or a boundary is crossed. Like, I don't want to. Why can't you do it? I'm just checking in with the chat. Yeah. Summer talks about lacking language for setting boundaries. Really, I think universally challenging. We'll go into that a little bit. Boundaries have been a fluid learning for me since learning about them, and I want to continue to learn to embody boundaries rather than thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Summer, like, always 6 years old. That story of like, nobody picked me. Nobody wants me. I relate to that a lot. These are really great shares, everybody. Thank you for adding to the chat. The capacity, I think, so again, you all know a big focus of my work and the focus for Mother Fire is motherhood. But again, this relates to all of us. Very specifically in motherhood, though, the capacity you had to endure up to that point goes away. You do not have the same capacity to tolerate other people's shit, to do everything on your own, to swallow disappointment as you did before you were totally responsible for someone else's life. And as women, whether you have children or not, we're navigating these massive hormonal fluctuations. Our lives are seemingly infinitely more and more complex, right? And there's simply a limit to how much you can tolerate without having your deep needs met. Your deep need to be seen, to be heard, to respect it, to be respected, to know that your desires and your vision matter. And part of this duality is being the one to validate and substantiate these needs for yourself. Because if you are only waiting for someone else to do that for you, you're coming at it from a childlike place, which will never sustain an adult relationship. And you will be endlessly disappointed because there's no one other than whatever supreme being you believe in who can endlessly validate your experience. That's like, I just believe that's like the realest thing. This is also an element of why circling with women is so important. To take that action on behalf of our younger self, to take that action on behalf of her, to put ourselves in a situation where there is holding, there is unconditional support, which is what a circle of women ideally provides, and when it's held properly, should provide. The key to boundaries, I said this earlier, is that they reflect the life you are living, not the life you wish you had, and not the life you used to have. That's why boundary setting, boundaries, how you conceive of them for yourself, have to be explicit. Because part of what you're doing when you set a boundary, whether it's with yourself, right? I set boundaries with myself all of the time. Even like it takes me this long to get ready to get to the gym. So this is the time that I have to wake up. It's a boundary. I feel better when I go to the gym at least 3 times a week. 4 is better. So like that's a boundary that I hold for myself. I don't let so many days go by without moving my body. That's an understanding I have with myself. It has to be explicit. It can't, if it's not explicit, it turns into that like, well, you're lazy. I knew you couldn't do it. Well, you know, it starts to devolve into the blaming and shaming. And the same goes in relationship with another person. If you're not explicit, you can't expect the other person to understand what your experience is. And if you don't have room inside yourself to acknowledge and respect their version of reality, it's also going to be really hard to hold and set and hold that boundary. A boundary has to create more connection, and we create more connection through understanding.
That's so interesting. I've never heard anybody say that. And let me know if you can't hear me.
I can hear you.
The headphones that I have, the microphone sucks. But I've never heard somebody say boundary is to encourage more connection. And then also like if you're not understanding that person's reality, because that stuck out to me because I'm so defensive with my boundaries. Like I already know the person isn't going to understand where I'm coming from because we're not the same playing field. And I have to break it down in like chewable pieces for them because like
they don't respect anybody's boundaries. So me just trying to set a tiny, you know what I mean? And I've just been like, I have to hold my ground and like try not to hurt their feelings. Like I don't have to get in a fight with them, but I just have to hold my ground. But yeah, I've never went in with the attempt of like, I'm gonna understand where they're coming from, because I already know where they're coming from is like a commitment to misunderstanding, you know?
Right. And that's also a big feature of childhood and developmental trauma, that we assume that we know what everybody else is thinking, doing, feeling all the time. And it's one thing to like, I have a pretty solid sense of how my parents are going to respond to things. But I also don't know how they're going to respond to me when I conduct myself differently, because part of their behavior is based on my behavior. Part of how they come at me is how I come at them. And what I make room for makes room for something different. And you know what? I want to acknowledge here, like, this is a lot of emotional labor. But our choice is do the fucking emotional labor or be a victim to your circumstances. Be a victim in this world. And I'm not about to do that. I'm not about to let women I know and love do that. I'm just not about it. And the tool of somatic experiencing is explicitly about holding the tension of these two things. It is not either or. The way forward is to give yourself time and space to acknowledge this hurts. I'm in pain. The 6-year-old in me hates this. Okay. So let's do some of the work to support her. Like the writing exercise we're going to do at the end, like feeling into your body right now as fully supported by the ground, by your furniture, by the 4 walls and the roof that you have. If you're feeling overwhelmed right now, I want to give you guys all this amazing exercise. It's so simple. When you're working with boundaries, push your hands into your outer thighs. So take your hands right to like, not your knee joint, but just above. Push in as hard as you can with your hands and push out with your legs. If you're sitting in a chair that has arms, you can also push your arms out into the resistance of the arms of your chair. And just notice what that does, how you're affected by it. Without, or, you know, there's effort, there's physical effort to do it, but there's also a big softening of my inner space. Be curious what you experienced, if that supported you at all, and just coming back into your body. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like expressing the like intense emotion on something else outwardly instead of like expressing it on myself or like suppressing something.
Mm.
So I'm not like hurting anybody. But I am like moving the tension and the feeling like off of myself instead of it having.
Yeah. You're still very much acknowledging it and giving it a place to go. And when you come into, let's say, when that experience goes into thoughts, that's perfect for a thought spiral, right? They just get going and whipping around, and it's infinite space up there. There's no end to it. But when you put your body in relationship to a boundary, like here are the bounds, we're not moving, we can't go anywhere. There's only so much you can actually deal with and work with. And most of the time it's a digestible amount. That's the goal. We're going to do a quick body check-in. I'm trying to think how I can, I want to maximize our time, meaning give you something really supportive, but I don't want to overwhelm us. I think I'm going to have to skip this one practice, but we can do something else before we get into the writing. So we have plenty of time for writing and no one has to stress about the hour. Excuse me. Got the burps this morning. I guess I'm relaxing. Guess that's my parasympathetic nervous system relaxing in the presence of such cool women. Okay, so let's do another sort of body boundary practice. This one's really interesting. You can sit or stand for this. I think standing, actually, I lied. You can't sit for this. You have to stand up. So what I'm going to guide you through is just like a really simple upper torso rotation practice. But what I want you to feel for is where there's a limit in your body. So where there's tension. And I'm the type of person to like really push into sensation. I love that feeling. I'm like, oh yeah. I want to feel my fascia rip apart and hear pops and like make it crazy. Don't do that. The boundary that I'm putting on this exercise is that you don't move in to tension. It's like coming up to a wall. You're not pushing into it. You just identify where that wall is and you trace that boundary with your movement. Does that make sense, more or less? We'll have a couple of passes to experiment with it. So I'm going to sit just so that you can see my torso, but I want you standing. Have your feet about hips width distance apart. Cross your arms over your chest, and it doesn't matter which arm is on top. Just notice which one is on top. And then you're going to drop your chin to your chest and round your upper back without tucking your tailbone. So try to keep your pelvis out of this. Just round your upper back a little bit so you can see your toes. And then rotate your torso to the left so that you're looking at your left pinky toe. Keep your chin dropped. Tilt your torso back like you were trying to put your shoulder in your back pocket. Remember, find that limit like a wall. The tension is like a wall. You're not pushing into it. You're just tracing it. And then start to lift your eyes up toward the ceiling and make a rainbow shape with your torso. Up and over to the other side, to the right. Drop your right shoulder into your right back pocket. And then rotate forward so that you're looking at your right pinky toe. And then round forward to the starting position. And slowly lift up. Then change the cross of your arms. Drop your chin, allow your upper spine to round. This time going left first. Rotate your torso so that you're looking at your right pinky toe. Keep the movement out of your hips as much as possible. Tilt your torso back like you're putting your right shoulder in your right back pocket. And then with your eyes, start to look up and over like a rainbow. And roll your spine over to the left shoulder and left back pocket. Rotate forward so you're looking at your left pinky toe. And then round forward to the starting position. And slowly come upright and release your arms. So you could do that 2 more times in each direction. It's a really important, I think, fascinating, illuminating every time exercise to work inside of the boundary of tension, to break that pattern of pushing into it and against it, just to meet that boundary. And I notice, probably if we did it a few more passes, you would have more clarity around this. I get much more mobility the less I push. It's as though the body is responding to my request instead of my demand. What a metaphor. All right, my friends, please come to sitting. I am right on time. I can't even believe how punctual I am. I wrote down what time I had to start the writing exercise, and we are there. So we're going to write for 7 minutes. Some of you may have seen this on my Substack. We're going to do a practice where every single sentence you write starts with, I want to start by saying. And yes, you have to write it every single time. So you don't just get to write it at the top of your page and then write half sentences. You need to write it every single time. You can write that first half, the first piece on your page. I want to start by saying, and then like stream of consciousness, you fill it in, but here's the specificity. I want you to call to mind, and you can do that now with your eyes closed or open. I want you to call to mind one person that you're currently having difficulty setting or holding a boundary with. And allow this choice to be someone who's not a 10 on the intensity scale, like not your biggest trigger. Probably not your mom, okay? I know each of you, I'm like, don't pick your mom. But someone else, right? It could be your employer, it could be a friend, you know, misunderstanding. It doesn't have to be the most intense, but that's the person you're looking at when you write each of these phrases. Okay? Do we feel clear enough? Every single sentence starts with, I want to start by saying. Okay, I'm starting our time now. We have 7 minutes. Gonna take about 1 more minute. All right, so start to find your stopping point. Let's just take a moment to orient to what is so in your present moment. You can let your eyes go where they want to go, or you can close your eyes and orient to the fact of your feet on the ground or your pelvis in your seat. Allow yourself a moment to sense a settling on some level, whether that's a body part relaxes or a deeper, more spontaneous breath comes through, or you just notice a shift in your state. So I'd love to hear from each of you what that was like for you. And you can put it in the chat or you can speak. What was that like for you to specifically the writing?
I kind of struggled at first with the writing, and then it kind of, I don't know, I kind of got the groove because I was like, I don't know what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what I want to say or who I want to say it to.
Mm.
So I kind of like chose different people, different small scenarios. Um, and it was kind of jumping around, but yeah, it was interesting.
Would you be willing to answer a question?
Sure.
Second question. Does that feel like something that you encounter just normally? Like, I don't know what to say. I don't even know what to say. The hesitation in the writing practice, does that and then sort of maybe finding your groove, or is there any overlap there in just how it feels to express yourself?
I think the intentionality may be the key there.
Mhm.
I can be very just like, this is
Mhm.
reactive, or, this is how I feel. This is
Yeah.
what's going on in the moment. And to have the slowing down and the forethought of, okay, this is what I'm trying to say, and having that intentionality behind it.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks for playing along. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll share. So, I was gonna pick my dad, but then you said not to do my mom. So I was like, okay, that is a very high triggering thing. So I picked my best friend, which I feel like we've bumped up against each other a lot in the past like 3 months, and we normally
Mhm.
like don't. And so I started writing, and then honestly, like after the third sentence, like it changed from like accusatory to like secret confession to like this is how I feel.
Mhm.
Like there's like a power imbalance, but it's not like in a it's not in like a predatory way. It's just like there, and we don't know how to balance it. So it just like stays that way. And then it was like, this is what I would do if you weren't in my life, but I feel like because you are in my life, I like keep a code to you kind of. And then at the end, it was just like, honestly, I can't even remember something that we fought about recently. Like, I remember getting upset, but like, I can't even remember what made me upset. And it just like doesn't seem important now because like I love you. And that was really interesting to me because what Rachel was saying, like really reactive, like I get really reactive. Like I get so mad, like
Yeah.
everyone knows when I'm having a bad day. Cause then I'm like, oh, the alarm's going, like shut it down, like close the windows, call everyone.
Can you feel, Summer, can you feel the difference between the part of you or the version of you that started writing compared to the part of you that finished the exercise?
Yeah.
Like, how do you recognize the shift in that? Or could you even state like what part started and what part finished?
It started as like know it all, like sorry if anybody's a Virgo, but I just associate with like Virgo energy, like I'm right and I have all the notes and the
I'm
scientific
Virgo adjacent. I'm a Capricorn. It's true.
how it started, and then it ended like probably just like a mushy Cancer, like I don't care, hurt my feelings again, I just love you, and like
But
you're
you
not
also, what
really
I
gonna
heard you
hurt me.
say, like you come to the end, again, the soul of boundaries. What do you want? What is actually important to you? Having a conversation with your friend where a boundary needs to be set or changed, coming from a place of this relationship matters to me, is entirely different than starting the conversation with, you're a fucking bitch, you crossed my boundary. Like you can do a lot
Well,
of
I
good work
think
inside of a relationship toward the goal of having boundaries in place that come from a
yeah,
place
well, I
of,
think
I love you.
she would be like, no, you don't have
Oh,
to
you're
like
doing
have
that
this
thing
code to,
again. You're thinking for her.
and then she's gonna be like, you don't have to, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to, but I do. Like I have this whatever.
But instead of having the conversation for her before you start it,
Mm-hmm.
have the conversation because it's very, very vulnerable. The thing about those of us who know everything that other people are going to say, do, and feel is that it's actually a protection against the vulnerability of not knowing and risking your sense of the rightness of the universe by having this dynamic change. So it's a very vulnerable thing. And I just want to highlight that. I want to shift to Moppy so she has time to share, but all of these are really, I hope, very illuminating for you. They're very illuminating for me. I think there's a lot of clarity that comes from such a practice. Not just, you know, the writing it out and doing it, but then sitting back and being like, huh, what was that for me? What was the transition I went through? How did I react to having to like slow it down and spell it out and be specific? Go ahead, Moppy. Yes, correct, Rachel.
This was interesting. I don't have a good relationship with telling people I'm disappointed. So a lot of this started out with how I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Almost every sentence. And this though the relationship was with I guess partner employer. I put up a boundary recently with him and said I either want to be a partner or I want to do freelance. And he went with freelance and I haven't had like work from them since. So it's like a tricky situation for me.
Yeah.
And where I go typically is I don't want to have any relationship at all.
Yeah.
So a lot of this was like, ugh, having to say and like just imagining me having a conversation about expressing disappointment, that all just like brought a whole bunch of ick to the forefront because of the vulnerability. And yeah, I'd much rather feel like they can leave the relationship with like I'm right than like consider that there was a boundary crossed or that there was like a relationship that needs repair. That makes sense.
Yeah. And again, notice how much the spiral is facilitated by assuming we know what the other person thinks or feels. You cannot, like, boundary work is fucking communication skills 101 and 201 and 301 and your PhD. Like, it is the art of communication. And you mentioned something. I'm not going to go in too much depth about this, Moppy, but I think it's relevant and I want to speak to it briefly. Boundaries with narcissistic personalities. Y'all, this is not a foolproof system. You cannot change people. So your boundary, what helps you cope with the grief of setting a boundary and being fucking disappointed by what the other person chooses and how they act, is, well, I'm in integrity with myself. This is what I wanted. This is what I'm trying to protect. This is what I'm taking inside myself and seeking to fortify with my choices and my requests and my behavior and the company that I keep. If you can't meet someone on the same page, that doesn't make you wrong and it doesn't make them wrong. It makes it a divergence in your path. Going over here, seeking that sustenance for my soul. Like, as a deeply feeling woman, one of the most important life skills is fucking not taking everything so personally. Not everything is emotional, actually. And I'm like smashing a bunch into these last 2 minutes of our call. But for those of you who've been with me for a long time or are curious about some of the structure of somatic experiencing, there are these channels that we work with. The structure is a pentagram, which is why I always make this symbol when I talk about it. It's consolidated and refined a little bit in Kimberly Ann Johnson's book, Call of the Wild. She uses the acronym TIMES: thinking, image or imagination, movement, emotion, and sensation. And these are the 5 channels or sort of experiences of the world that we're working with. And everyone defaults to 1 or 2 channels. and has very little, if any, access to the other channels. And a resilient system is one that can work through all 5 channels. I can have clear thoughts about it. I can move my body about it. I can experience the sensation of it. I have feelings, and I can imagine a different outcome, or I can connect to the fact that what I'm imagining is in fact my imagination and not real. I can come up with a metaphor for this situation to make it less triggering and less personal. There are all sorts of ways to work with our relationships and these deeply conditioned patterns of, power dynamics and agency. And that's really what this is about. That's really what Mother Fire is about. That's really what I'm about. It's how can we put ourselves in right relationship to the agency that we actually have and continue to foster a relationship to that, both by challenging ourselves in how we express ourselves and communicate, but also fortifying our sense of power and support through the company that we keep and how we choose to spend our time, which is what Mother Fire is hopefully a gap that I'm intending to fill for some. So that's my spiel. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm so grateful to each of you for being here live and giving me so much richness to work with. Those of you listening to the recording, thank you very much for your time, and I'll be in touch. I'll hang out a little bit if you guys have any further questions. I've got a little more time.